The Yukon in northwest Canada is a wild, icy, deserted territory. The largest glacial zone in the world after that of Antarctica is located here on the border between the Yukon and Alaska. This is the kingdom of wind, water, and ice. The beauty of this hostile world reflects the great chaos of our origins. The Yukon is a reminder of what the planet must have looked like before life and man appeared.
Okay.
This inhospitable region is home to the mushers, dog sled drivers. In the Yukon's boundless white expanse of virgin territory, they have found the ideal terrain to indulge their passion. 1,000 miles, more than 1,600 kilometers. This is the distance that Marcelle is capable of covering with her dogs in 12 days, alone and unassisted. 1,600 kilometers in temperatures of -40 in winter, when daylight lasts just a few hours.
I suppose you could say I specialize in long-distance racing. It's a full-time endurance sport because the dogs have to be trained just like athletes. I consider myself like one of them. I can tell how dogs think, I know how they live, all of that. It's in my blood. I've been like this since I was very small. It's easier for me to live with dogs. They have so many qualities I love. They're generous, strong, hardworking, efficient, and they're affectionate too. There are a lot of reasons I love these dogs. It's paradise here. I love wide open spaces. I also love the cold and the long winters. There's everything a sled dog lover could want. It's such an adventure. Some people set off in their cars with their little pet dog. I set off with my whole team, and I love it. Each dog has its own compartment with straw. They're used to it. They know that when we leave the ranch and I put them in their compartments, that means they're going to go sledding in the snow.
In spring, Marcelle has to travel for miles before she can hit the snow. She comes to train at White Pass, which was the route the gold prospectors took. Today, the region is deserted once again. There are only 30,000 inhabitants in the Yukon.
Très bien. Good.
When you head off on your sled, it doesn't take long to get far away. If you were to come walking around here, you wouldn't see any little paths. No signposts telling you the station is so many miles away, the next restaurant is there. There's nothing at all, not even any tracks. You don't see any bridges either. In summer, you have to ford the many rivers, and the water's not warm. When you set out in winter, you're isolated very quickly, and you have to get by and survive. That's important here.
Ici, c'est important. Eh bien, good. Bien body. Doucement, c'est bien, good. J'utilise toujours.
I always use positive training methods. I'm not a trainer. I'm not interested in telling a dog, sit, lie down. I work on the qualities of the dog itself. A sled dog wants to pull a sled. So I exploit this quality as well as I can.
Marcelle is the leader of the pack. She manages all the conflicts between the dogs with their various sensitivities. She also determines their position according to their personality. The lead dogs play a major role. They relay the musher's orders to the rest of the pack.
Apache, the brown dog who was in the front there, doesn't really feel at home in the spring snow. So I'm taking advantage of that to try out a young dog. She's really proud. You can just see her thinking, oh, my turn has come. We don't have a set schedule. We adapt our pace to suit the dogs. When they're tired, we stop. Or sometimes, if I'm tired, we stop. I try to be independent because you have to be able to get by in the woods. It's so peaceful among the wide open spaces. And I love being with my dogs in the woods. And also nowadays, you have snowmobiles, which are great. But sled dogs have been around for a long, long time. And in the future, sled dogs will still be around, whereas snowmobiles won't. So that's why I carry on sledding.
Marcelle shares everything with her dogs. And in the evening, she even beds down with them in the middle of the forest. The territory that Marcelle crosses with her dogs has not always been as sparsely inhabited as it is today. In August 1896, the American George Carmack crossed the Klondike River in the center of the Yukon. While he was resting on the bank of a stream, Carmack was suddenly intrigued by a flash of yellow in the stream bed. He had just discovered a gold nugget. The news spread along the Yukon River and then to the rest of the world, triggering a gold rush. Thousands of adventurers made their way north. Only two routes led to the dream of fortune, a sea route and a land route. An inscription on one of the maps of the Yukon of the time sounded more like a warning. Whichever route you choose, you'll wish you took the other. For the gold prospectors, nothing could stop them in their feverish quest. Nothing except death. The Broughton Archipelago is a labyrinth of islands, channels, inlets, and fjords. It is located in British Columbia, 300 kilometers northwest of Vancouver. There are not many inhabitants here, and the communities are few and far between. There are no roads, so everything is done by water. Nikki knows this region where land and sea meet like the back of her hand. A few years ago, she embarked upon an exceptional life experience. With a friend, she decided to abandon her urban life and go settle on one of the islands of the archipelago, totally cut off from the rest of the world. They brought with them no items of modern society. They wanted to live like the very first humans. Nikki rarely returns to the cabin where she lived out her Robinson Crusoe dream.
Wow, it's so overgrown. Wow. I can't believe I lived in this. God. Moss is all falling off the roof. God. Gosh. Sticks. Huh. Wow. I remember when I built this. Oh, the shack. Spent, so many days harvesting clay from nearby creek and trying to chink all of the gaps in the winter. The wind would just rush through and blow out your candle, and it was really cold.
What prompted Nikki to undertake such an experience? What made her push herself to the limit? To survive in her cabin, she learned the primitive techniques used by the Indians, the first inhabitants of the Broughton Archipelago. She also learned to live in contact with wild animals, to observe and imitate them. Like them, she had to live off whatever food the forest and the sea offered her.
This is a black bear, and there's lots of black bears in the area. Sometimes you can get really close, and in the beginning of the spring, they're really a lot more shy. You know, I've been really close to bears, and it's mostly the energy you have. If you're really calm and you're not afraid, and they know you're not afraid, then they're not, and you can stalk right up to them. So it's mostly learning how to kind of act like a bear, too. You know, if you're acting like them, then they don't say, oh, here comes a human trudging along and making a lot of noise. And they kind of treat you like you're a bear. And you can get a lot closer and learn a lot more about them.
The fluctuating light of the sky filled with clouds blowing in from the vast Pacific doesn't seem to bother Nikki. She's right at home in this eerie atmosphere among these remote islands. She's enchanted by their mystery, and above all by the surprising encounters she makes here. Nikki appreciates what she calls this sweet wildness.
This is a colony of sea lions. They're here every year. They live here full time. When I first came, I didn't know that there was any sea lions here, but I could hear them roaring out here. And I was like, what is that? It's like a sea monster out here or something. And eventually I rode over and I found them. And they're here all year round. There can be up to 200-300 of them here.
Living in harmony with nature, leading a free life. Here, Nikki reconnected with what was tucked away deep inside her, a buried instinct, a fascination for the beauty of the world. In the Broughton archipelago, she found what many people are seeking: a life that is reduced to its most simple expression, harmony at the heart of the elements: earth, air, fire, and water.
A lot of the primitive skills in the native cultures had aspects of, the physical skill, the mental skill, and the spiritual skill of them. And in the fire especially, the different parts had different meanings. And the spindle represented the people, and the fireboard was like the earth. And the bow together with the spindle made the four directions, this kind of cross element. And then the handhold is representative of the creator, the spirit that moves through all things, the thing that keeps everyone together. And when all of those parts are working in total harmony, it produces this new life, this little coal. And then you blow that into a flame, and it's magic.
The techniques Nikki is using to prepare and cook her fish are archaic, yet quite sophisticated. When she lived here in her cabin, her time was entirely taken up with essential activities: making fire, finding food, preparing and eating it.
When we first came out, we weren't very good at our skills. It was pretty, we got really hungry and skinny, and for about 3 months. Yeah, it was really tough. We almost had to leave. And then eventually we figured out how to catch fish, and we figured out how to row around and search for proper food, and we harvested some animals, and eventually we became really good at our skills. So good. Presentation might be lacking with the nails but boy, so good.
The vast range of coast mountains is situated more than 400 kilometers inland from the fjords where Nikki lives. In the northwest of British Columbia, the mountains are completely unspoiled. Their towering trees dwarf the humans at their feet. Michael and Hans have a good reputation as mountaineers. In a week, these two experienced climbers will ascend several passes and live up at an altitude where few men dare to venture. Skiing in these deserted regions demands total commitment. The slightest error can be very costly. There are no villages in these vast mountain ranges, and in the event of an accident, help can take several days to arrive. Michael and Hans have brought with them all the equipment they need to take on the mountains and its dangers. They know full well that now that they have set out, they have to rely entirely on themselves.
Yeah, I found my place. I mean, it was for me a big dream to be a mountain guide and go skiing in British Columbia. That's the reason I came over here, and I mean, I think it's the best skiing in the world, honestly, because I have seen lots of places, and the terrain is just endless. A lifetime would be too little to explore a small part of it. something bigger than what we humans can make, and we just are allowed to travel through it and see it. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's like the Earth has been forever like this, you know. We're just basically a guest on it, and we can have a glance, and the more you see, the more you want to see. That's probably part why you do those things. In a way, it's the edge of civilization here, you know. It's so untouched by humans that you really have this feeling you're one of the first people, only people to see this and discover it. But you discover it for yourself, you know. It's part of the journey.
This morning, the mountain is as unforgiving as ever, but Michael and Hans decide to continue their journey despite the blizzard. They want to continue their ascent in order to cross a pass towards sunnier slopes. In fact, they're hoping to climb a peak on the other side before nightfall. But when you're up in the mountains, you don't decide. The weather does.
I mean, you have time to think, like when you go up, for example, on the ski tour, you have to think. But all those thoughts, they float in and out, and for me, I think I open up and I enjoy, let's say the light is very special today, or the clouds are coming in and all those things, right? And it takes all your thoughts away from the daily life a little bit, and you deal more with the thing right there, because what's important right now is right there.
Michael heads the way. He's the leader and forges the path in the deep snow of the slope. The men have to stick together and remain highly focused on one and the same objective, reaching the summit.
We never have been here, so it's very satisfying because you made it your own way. You work for it hard, climb all the way until you reach it, and then it's always good to get up there because you see what's on the other side. One of the earliest motivations for mountain climbing is like, let's see what's on the other side of the summit. I like it like that.
In this silent universe, one must stay alert. The mountains of Western Canada are a harsh land, but those who dare venture here are rewarded with one of the most breathtaking spectacles our planet has to offer. Alaska, the continent in the Inuit language. Libby is a young American full of energy. After her studies, she decided to come back to live in Homer, where she was born, to be as close as possible to the mountains and to the sea, her two passions. The myth of Alaska is what brought Lionel here. This French globetrotter became a guide in the Katmai region, land of grizzlies, a virgin land with the largest population of brown bears in the world. Farther north, the roof of America with Danial. This lady belongs to the Club of Bush Pilots, a very select group.
There was a year that I spent in Alaska. My first year, I never had a car. I went everywhere by an airplane or a mountain bike. So, and to me, that was a dreamland, or still is.
The Kenaï Peninsula in southern Alaska is a land of volcanoes, endless forests and fjords, a land sculpted by the sea and glaciers. Living here means accepting nature's implacable law: cold, snow, winters that are 7 months long, rain, mud, mosquitoes in the summer, and Libby loves it all. For her, returning to the land where she was born was the obvious thing to do. This land has gotten under her skin, tattooed even, on her ankle. 8 stars, the emblem of Alaska.
After I finished university, it was a pretty easy decision to come back to Alaska. It's just a wild, open place where there's still a lot of room to breathe, and you can be far away from all the hassles of traffic and shopping malls and cars and just too many people, and you can get away to where life really is, which is in the mountains and in the forests, just natural wonders.
Kachemak Bay near Homer, Alaska, is home to the biggest crabs in America and to the biggest Greenland halibut in the Pacific, and that's no fish story. So fishermen flock here to enjoy miraculous fishing at least once in their lifetimes. And Libby turns sailor to teach them the basics of fishing.
Generally, I run a wilderness backpacking school for children, but sometimes I fill in on the charter boat just because it's fun and there's good money in it. And I like being out on the water. I think it's really fun, and it's always a pleasure. So.
Listen up! I'm gonna teach you how to fish. In case you've forgotten, my name's Libby. Chet's the other deckhand.
Libby has her sea legs on, which can't be said for everyone on board the boat. In this region of the far north, you have to know how to adapt. People living here hold down several different jobs at a time. Libby is an English teacher in the winter. In summer, she's a mountain guide and a fishing guide. And she's just as at home on a boat up to her elbows in fish as she is in a classroom teaching English literature.
A lot of young people come back after going to university. They come back to Homer to work on the charter boats in the summertime. And there's not a lot of work in the winter, but in the summer there's more work than there are people. So it's a good job to have. I like fishing because it's fun, but I definitely prefer the mountains.
At Libby's place, there's no running water, just a little cistern to collect rainwater that has to be boiled. As for the toilet, it's outside, summer and winter. Her farm, constructed by early 20th century immigrants, has a long history. The house was built on land granted to pioneers to grow food for the early gold hunters seeking their fortunes in Alaska. This little house has been home to a good many dreams. It's the oldest farm in the region, and now it's home to Libby's dreams. Avon is the grandson of pioneers from Switzerland, farmers who came in the 1930s. He also has decided to stay in Alaska. Like Libby, the mountains are in his blood.
In In Alaska, I feel like there's towns and the wilderness goes out. Everywhere else in the lower 48, I feel like the wilderness is always surrounded by the towns, and so people go from the towns into the wilderness. But in Alaska, because it's so big still, the towns are very small and we go out, and so it's the further you go, the more danger and just the more adventure and the more opportunities there are to see things that have never been seen and to go places where no one has ever been. So I like Alaska for that reason a lot.
The generation of Libby's parents was part of the last great wave of American-style pioneers. In the 1960s, a lot of hippies left California for a more authentic lifestyle in Alaska. They all found their promised land and the space in which to be free.
Hey, dance, gypsy, dance, all around the fire. Dance, gypsy, dance, all around the fire. Won't you dance, gypsy, dance, around the fire.
This is a small gathering of our closest family friends for my mother's 60th birthday. Everything's special about Homer. We have beautiful scenery, wonderful people, really nice, close community. There's glaciers nearby and mountains, amazing fishing, and just a really nice arts community.
Libby and Avon have just opened a new climbing route on one of the mountaintops across the bay. We're going with them on their last reconnaissance flight before winter. They have to make this trip in order to evaluate the difficulty of the climb and of the glacier. If all goes well, they'll be bringing groups of teenagers here next summer.
Here's a really difficult spot for the pilot to land because it's a very small valley, and he has to circle around and then land. Anything windy and it's gonna be a little bit tricky, so we're on his schedule. The glacier pilots here and the bush pilots here they're in charge. They're the number one, so we just kind of work by their schedule. There are a few things that I love more than being away from everyone else. I'm a very solo person. And when I'm out here in the wilderness, that's where I really feel at peace. Because there's nobody to tell me what to do. There's nothing to distract me from myself or from the world around me, and I can really focus on what's most important to me, which is enjoying life.
One place for sleeping, another for eating. One has to take all possible precautions to avoid unpleasant surprises. Bears are everywhere in these mountains.
We try to put everything away so that bears don't come around and can get into our camp. You can set up the... I do my fire like my grandfather taught me to do my fire. This wood is high in turpentine. This is magnesium and opine wood. And the magnesium, when it's lit, it burns very hot. So the two of them together, this wood helps the magnesium catch on fire.
A few meters from the glacier, the temperature hardly goes above 5 degrees Celsius. And this is summer. We're lucky. But we can't sit around the campfire for very long. In a few hours, we attack the glacier. There are dozens of ice fields in the Kenaï Peninsula, some of the largest in the world, and most of these frozen seas are practically inaccessible. This morning, the elements are against us. On the other side of the Pacific, thousands of kilometers away, a typhoon is starting to blow. We can feel it even here, and the mountain amplifies its effect.
Just across the mountain range is the Gulf of Alaska, and so the weather comes usually from the Gulf of Alaska out there, and it comes over these mountains, and it just comes in real fast sometimes, strong winds. And because the glacier is very cold, it creates winds all on its own too that come and rush down the glacier sometimes. So those are some weather concerns we have to think about.
There's all kinds of volcanoes around here. We have Mount Augustine, Mount Iliamna, and Mount Redoubt. Mount Redoubt just erupted in April of this year, and it was a pretty big eruption. It spewed ash for hundreds of miles. There's ash all over Homer and Anchor Point and all the way as far as the head of the bay. Up here, that's what you can see, all the black on the glacier is all from the volcanic ash.
The glacier is alive. It's always moving. Libby and Avon have to come here regularly to update their knowledge of the mountain and to evaluate the dangers. This seemingly immobile mass is constantly changing. Crevices shift. And like everywhere else in the world, this immense sea of ice is receding, inch by inch.
The valley has been the same for 1,000 years. The ice has moved back, of course, but people have not come here, and there's no campsites, and the bears don't come and eat your food because they don't even know that they can. There's no reason for it to change in the past, and we try to keep it so there's no reason that it has to change in the future. You always make sure your campfire is put out and cleaned up, and I try to scatter it and bury it so that you can't tell that anyone was even here, that this wasn't even a campsite, so that it can be preserved for the next people and for generations to come and also appreciate places like this.
Avon's grandfather, the pioneer who came to build Alaska, handed down this philosophy to him. The earth is generous on condition you don't take everything from it. It's hard to believe, but even here, man's insatiable appetite is putting nature at risk. From the Paris suburbs to the vast stretches of Alaska, there are many worlds to cross. Lionel has seen them all, urged on by his yearning for adventure.
I came to Alaska 30 years ago, so I've been here for 30 years. At first it was so I could make money to continue traveling, and I ended up staying. I was taken in by Alaska, captivated by the nature. In the beginning, I traveled around all over, by plane, by snow scooter, and then I wanted to share it all with other people, so after having worked as a baker and in restaurants, I felt like doing something a little closer to nature. I sold all my businesses and started working as a guide.
The seaplane is the only way of getting to where we're going. Lionel is a nature guide, and his specialty is brown bears, the grizzlies that are the pride of the Alaskan people.
Okay, seatbelts on, everybody? Seatbelts? Yeah.
We're going bivouacking with Lionel in the Katmai, a totally virgin region, 400 kilometers west of Anchorage.
The north, until the moon came out of the north, now we're finally getting
The Katmai is a vast uninhabited region of middle-range mountains, lakes, volcanoes, and tundra. For nearly 100 years, the Katmai has been a protected area, a natural reserve. This land is sacred. Two or three times a year, Lionel sets up camp as near as possible to the bears. This time round, he's here with a team of animal photographers from Europe.
When you're really isolated like this, if something's missing, there's no way you can get it. You have to have it with you. That means an enormous amount of planning, a lot of material. If we want to be completely safe, we need satellite telephones, weapons, good quality tents. If we forget something, we do without it. That's it. You never know what could happen. It could rain. The weather in the north changes very quickly. And then there are all the weather fronts that come from the east, from Siberia. There isn't a weather station every 20 kilometers here, so they have to rely solely on the satellite image, and sometimes that changes rapidly.
This is the last sanctuary for one of the most legendary of animals, the brown bear. Nearly 3,000 of them have been counted in the Katmai region. Nowhere else on the planet is there such a concentration.
You always want to stay with them a little longer. Really, these animals are so mysterious and captivating, close to us. It's like our childhood teddy bear come alive.
At the end of the summer, the bears gobble down quantities of Pacific salmon. They can catch up to 80 a day. Every year at the same time, after an incredible journey, hundreds of thousands of salmon come to lay their eggs and then die in the rivers of Alaska, in the exact same spot where they had been born several years earlier.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And the bears also come back to the same fishing holes from one year to the next.
The mother is dominant because she's managed to get rid of the male. With two cubs, she took enormous risks. She must have known that she would come out on top. It must have been a male she knew, because you don't often see a female with young drive off a male of that age.
The grizzly and the polar bear are the largest carnivores on Earth. The male grizzly can measure 2 meters 50, weigh 300 kilos, and charge at 50 kilometers an hour.
It's always really impressive to see just how fast these huge hulks can move, to see the speed at which they run, because they're really huge creatures. They always come across as clumsy, but when they take off, they can move. There's always a good deal of, I'd say, of wonder involved when you see grizzlies so close. Because, well, they're mythical animals.
This is the end of the road for these bright red salmon. They are living their final hours. They're exhausted, and so they're easy prey. And that works out well because the bears have only a few weeks left to feast on them. This is their last big feed before they return to their lairs for the winter. But a Pacific salmon, however tired it is, won't go down without a fight. The Katmai is a land for adventure seekers. Patrick started out in Colorado, and in several stages has traveled more than 5,000 kilometers in his little plane before finally flying over this territory, where he has come to fish trout.
Well, I enjoy the flying more than the fishing. And yeah, it's a nice way to relax, and you appreciate a lot of things when you have the freedom of flight. You've got to be careful, and you have to know your limits, and the way to stay alive is to be more conservative. But as you're here more, there's little tricks that nature tells you that nature's changing, and if you're aware of that and safe, it's a good time.
A farmer in Colorado, Patrick is a wide-open space addict. He loves Alaska and comes up to pitch his tent here several times a year.
Sometimes we bring friends and family. 1 month ago, I bring my 2 nephews, 12 and 13 years old. They had a nice time. Alaska's fun when you share it. It's most fun when you share and show people.
The country is so magnificent and extraordinary that I think I've caught the Alaska bug. I try to make it back here. This is my 7th almost consecutive year. The moment I board the plane to return to France, all I can think about is coming back again.
You know, I feel very, very, very fortunate. I feel honored, and I feel blessed, and I feel, I don't know, something about Alaska. You can't explain it. This river right here might be the best rainbow river in the world, and to be here first, all by myself, it doesn't happen too often.
The Katmai is Alaska's horn of plenty. Where man and animal cross paths, the extraordinary becomes possible.
It's the last frontier, the last place without a lot of rules, the last place with no people, you know, the last place that you can die in 2 weeks, they still don't know you're gone, you know. There's still a sense of adventure for Alaska, for most people.
Fishing in this wild land is exclusively for pleasure, catch and release only. It's a question of philosophy.
Right now, the trout get in behind the red salmon. The salmon are going up the rivers to spawn and lay their eggs. So right now, the trout will get behind the salmon. Slow down. Yesterday I was here, I left camp at 5:30 and I got back at 4, you know, so my back starts to hurt though. Yesterday I took a nap on an island like this. You always wake up looking for the bear. Sound of Alaska. You know, bears, if you make yourself as big as you can with bright colors and a lot of noise, most of the time they leave. And the minute you run, if you're gonna walk away, back up. But the minute you run, it's their character to chase. So you just hold your ground and don't show any fear. Your heart.
This land is a magnet, in spite of the danger. Setting foot here is like delving as deeply as possible into yourself. It's an unforgettable apprenticeship of freedom. It's a return to the roots. Alaska is home to more than 70% of North America's brown bears. They are the pride and joy of Alaskans, who are even ready to accept a slowdown in economic development in order to protect this majestic animal. This has been happening in the Katmai for almost 100 years. Elsewhere, the bears were hunted and have almost disappeared. After a few hours' walk in the river, we find ourselves face to face with a whole family. This is the magical moment of the encounter, right in the middle of a feast.
We try to get as close as possible to get good photos, but the bear's a huge predator, so there's always a risk. The rule is to not get closer than 50 meters to a bear, but sometimes they're all over the place. And if you back away from one, you find yourself closer to another bear. So in fact, we're quite often only 15 to 20 meters away. I found myself surrounded by bears, but they didn't show any sign of aggressivity. The most important thing to do is make yourself known to the bears so they can identify you. They're gone! Come closer! There's a female and 3 little ones. The bear is an extremely solitary animal, changing its behavior during the feeding season when food is abundant. It becomes more tolerant of humans and even more tolerant of other bears. We take advantage of this, because when you're as close as we are now, it's not a common situation. If there weren't salmon all over the place, it'd be impossible.
In a few weeks, at the end of the spawning season, the red salmon will be gone from the rivers of Alaska, and the bears will be looking out for another source of food to satisfy their voracious appetites before going into hibernation. That's the sign for Lionel to leave. He'll have to wait another year before once again he will be able to approach these impressive predators. Suddenly, a freezing east wind starts blowing over the Katmai like a warning. There's no fighting it, it's time to go. We are only tolerated visitors in the land of the bear. Talkeetna holds a special place in the hearts of American pilots. It is here at the foot of Mount McKinley, the highest peak in North America, that the most important moments in the history of Alaskan aviation took place. This village remains the dream of many pilots even today. The airplane is still the easiest means of transportation in Alaska.
Pancake breakfast at the old log cabin store. Just break on through and don't you bother with the door. Going into the kitchen, fix yourself.
Danial is one of those famous Alaskan bush pilots who have the reputation of being among the best in the world. She can fly in the worst of conditions.
I flew up here in my airplane 9 years ago on a quick trip with some friends. Just decided to go on a long cross-country trip, and then I landed here and just saw all these airplanes on skis just taking off. It was overcast, but they were still getting to the mountain. Never saw McKinley, but just knew they were going up someplace and landing on a mountain with skis, and just was, yeah. I liked the town. There was good music in town, and just, I don't know, it just felt like a cool place. I can leave here and go fly up into the mountains, go hiking, go around a corner, run into a grizzly bear, and so you kind of feel like you're not living a protected life. It feels alive. About 80% of the state doesn't have any roads to it, so airplanes are the normal day-to-day travel. At one point, about 80% of the people that lived in Alaska had a pilot's license. And about 50% of the people had airplanes. So some people learned to fly, not because they loved it, but because they needed to get to their house or cabin.
In winter, the extreme cold brings everything to a halt. Come spring, Danielle gets more and more missions. She drops climbers off at Mount McKinley's base camp. In summer, weather conditions permitting, she treats her passengers to a flight over the snow-capped peaks.
Oh, we're flying up to the mountain. Yep, and up to the McKinley.
The plane is the local taxi. It's the bicycle, too. It's a bus, and sometimes it's even a pickup truck. Flying from morning to night, that's why Daniel left the boondocks of Colorado to come live here.
People that come here on a scenic flight generally want to be in a beaver because of the old radial engine, the poop, 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 poop. It's a classic. It's like the Harley Davidson of airplanes, for sure. The better I feel. I felt definitely, more at peace. My first year I spent in Alaska, I never had a car. I went everywhere by an airplane or a mountain bike, and to me that was a dreamland, or still is. It's common not to have electricity for maybe 2 days, 3 days in the winter. And when it's 40 below, everything will freeze after 1 day. And that's a problem not just for water, but for canned food. Anything like that will ruin.
There's no choice but to adapt to the climate. Danielle lives without running water in a converted container. She chose this life far from material constraints precisely because it gives her just what she needs, and no more. Enough to eat, to live, and above all, enough to dream. The essentials.
It's hard to explain, but I don't feel alone. feel connected to everything that goes around. Whereas if I'm in the city or more people, I feel more lonely. The more civilized thing gets, the more I feel lost. And here I don't feel lost. Some mornings here, I awaken and moose will come walking by. One morning I had a mother moose right outside this window. Her back is like this high. And then the calves are just walking around, little babies in the yard. And so you are reminded on how basic it is, necessities of life.
Skis for landing on mountains, bog wheels for the tundra. Danielle knows how to handle it all. In no time, 3 shakes and a few turns of a wrench, she changes her plane's landing gear.
I grew up in Colorado, and my dad and my brothers were all car mechanics and airplane mechanics. So weekends were out at the airport, and weekdays were in the garages. I like mechanics. I grew up around it, so yeah.
Okay, Daniel. Going?
Good.
How's it going? Good.
Ready to go rafting?
I am ready.
Awesome.
Let's go check out where we can land.
Today's mission is to drop Carl off near one of the region's many rivers.
I'm ready.
In less than an hour, Carl, an adventure hunter, will be out in the bush. For the Alaskans, taking the plane to go rafting is like taking the bus to go play tennis. Even though they stopped making them 40 years ago, the Beaver remains the favorite plane of the Alaskan bush pilots. They're passed on from one owner to the next like collector's items. Though it's not extremely fast, it can carry a very large load. It was designed to land anywhere at relatively low speed. It's the perfect bush plane.
This Beaver, it has a history with some of its accidents it's had, but probably the most famous is there was a murder that occurred in it. The owner had it on floats and landed in a river where his cabin was, and then he left the airplane tied up, went to his cabin, and then the following day or so when he came back to his airplane, someone had rigged a shotgun on the door, and he disconnected the airplane from the shore, then pushed off and opened up the door and got shot right in the chest from the shotgun. So the airplane was drifting down the river, and it took him a while to actually find the owner.
Danielle doesn't use landing strips, but just plots of open land, one more improbable than the next. She flies over once to check it out, and 2 minutes later, the plane is on the ground.
Cool. Well, have a good trip.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Danielle.
Bye-bye.
Have a safe flight back.
Yep.
Carl is going to have to walk a little before getting into the water. From now on, he's on his own, but that's exactly what he came for. If there's a problem, he'll have to work it out for himself. Those who don't follow the rules of the game can end up paying for it with their lives.
It's been raining for days now, on and off, and it rained hard last night, and the water is still coming up a little bit. And then this morning we've had rain and sun and different things. But you know what they say in Alaska? If you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes or move 5 miles. That's Alaska. No guarantees. It's become popular recently, pack rafting, where we take these rafts of about 2 kilos and we carry them into the wilderness and find some river to run out in the middle of nowhere. And you can take the raft out, you can blow it up, run a river, and then take out at another point, climb another mountain, go to another river, and it just allows you to look at a map in a whole new way. In Alaska, there's a lot of things that can be dangerous. You just really have to pay attention. You've got to be prepared in many ways. In my life jacket, I carry waterproof matches, I carry a signal mirror, I carry energy bars, I carry an emergency blanket, I carry the bare minimum survival tools to survive in case I just lose my boat or something worse. We're ready.
Most mountain rivers in Alaska are inaccessible. Going down them can take several days, and everyone knows it's a tough place. Even in summer, the temperature of the water rarely gets above 8 degrees Celsius. Enjoying simple moments like this in a breathtaking landscape. That's the lifestyle that many have chosen in Alaska. A simple and serene existence. Living here is feeling that you've found your place.
We're only 30 kilometers down from the glacier where this water is coming from. This is the Shalitna River, which comes out of the many glaciers on the east side of the Central Alaska Range. It's both got some clear water from snowmelt and the milky water from the glaciers. Now, every river in Alaska was named by the natives. It ends in na. Shalitna, Susitna, Tokasitna, and that's how you know it's a river in an Indian name.
Oh, look at my snow tree. I said, oh, look at my snow tree.
Carl, looks like you're traveling a little light.
I am traveling light.
Hey, you want to join us for lunch?
That would be great. That would be great. Where are you stopping?
Oh, you know, down here just a little ways.
Okay.
This canyon's going to open up a little bit.
That'd be nice to get off these wet clothes for a little bit, get some sun on me.
All right.
The unexpected is everywhere. We run into Joe, another rafting fanatic. He looks like a trapper, but he was the Talkeetna grade school teacher for more than 30 years. These two are old friends.
Hey, check it out, bear tracks.
The strength of the people living here is that they're at one with their environment. When summer's over, you have to get ready for the cold, ice, and snow. And yet Joe and Carl wouldn't give up Alaskan winters for anything in the world. That's when they can really savor their Alaska.
Well, I think there's a lot of emotions involved with being in the wilderness. For one, you have to be very honest with yourself, because if you make mistakes, you could easily die out in the wilderness. So you have to be careful, and you have to respect the wilderness, for one thing. You really get to appreciate your place in the world. We have to live on nature's terms. We can't change nature to live on our terms, so we have to accept it, and we have to see our part in how we fit in.
You know, there are still wild places where you can disappear. I know you can still hike out into some wild places and try to make your way and live off the land. And it seems odd that probably most of North America was settled by humans coming from Asia, walking probably right through this landscape right here, but they kept going because they realized that this was not exactly the best place to stop just because of the climate. But now, you know, more and more of us are saying, well, you know,
that place was worthwhile. Let's come back and see what we can make of ourselves in that space. The last frontier.
This is the dream of everyone living in Alaska. Danielle has just bought a piece of land where she's going to build a trapper's cabin. The myth of the pioneer lives on.
This is for the floor of my cabin. The smaller pieces are easier to transport in the airplane. Long pieces are difficult. I can transport some, but then the smaller pieces can go inside the airplane.
Danielle has chosen to build her dream house on an inaccessible hillside.
It's a good place. That's the fun of it, is that it is a challenge.
This young woman has not chosen the easy way out. The wind has to be just right in order to land on her little acre of paradise. Only Danielle could have dreamed this one up.
I need the wind to blow in the right direction in order to land. Either it needs to be really calm or the wind has to be from the right direction. So it can be small windows of opportunity to land there.
Her own plane is a 1956 canvas-built Piper that looks like something straight out of a cartoon strip.
It takes about 5 minutes to fly there. You cannot drive. It takes about 8 hours to hike there. Maybe 10. I never hiked. I feel alive for sure. Usually like an early morning before everybody's awake, when you first take off and feel that airplane leave the ground, and it's just the smooth, cold air, and it's just like flying up into a blanket. It's pretty dreamy. I don't know how you could beat that. It's just amazing. I feel fortunate that I'm obsessed with something so fun.
Within a few years, Danielle became a reputable bush pilot. She can land almost anywhere, something that not many other pilots are capable of doing. Her hill is a long way from being a landing strip. With a slope of more than 20 degrees, landing there is a real challenge. Danielle's plot of land is unique. With a stunning view of Mount McKinley, it's worthy of her dream.
I choose this area because it looks over the entire valley. And yeah, most of the time is down in the forest or in the canopy. So it's nice to have a place to go to where you can see over the entire valley. Yeah, it's a perch. Alaska is the roof of America, yeah. And then this is an awesome roof of the Susitna Valley, yep.
Home you say, home you say, home you say. Home you say, home you say, home you say, home. Home you say, home you say, home you
The Kingdom of Extremes, Alaska, land of pioneers in the gold rush, carries on and on, nourishing our dreams. That's why so many men and women on a quest end up here. In the end, perhaps the true gold of Alaska is freedom. Today, somewhere on Earth is headed for the west of America, a land where the pioneering spirit and dreams of fortune still live on. Al Fall is a musician. He plies the deserted roads of Arizona at the wheel of his old taxi. The concerts he gives in the little towns keep him in close contact with a slice of genuine America. Richard Fox, who grew up in the mountains of Wyoming, has chosen to live close to nature. By running the family ranch, he's perpetuating the cowboy tradition of the American West. The mountains and canyons of Utah still echo with Indian chants. Steph Davis has made this her playground. Climbing, skydiving, and base jumping, this is the daily bread of this enthusiastic woman in search of the extreme.
It kind of feels like being a bird when you have a wingsuit, because you can go where you want, you can steer it, you can, spin around in circles. It's just just an amazing thing that you could do that, You could be like a bird up there. It's kind of amazing that we have that chance.
Al Fall couldn't imagine his life any other way. For more than 20 years now, he's been living for and from his music, rock and roll. Al Fall, at the wheel of his old jalopy, travels Arizona's dusty deserts scattered with cactus. It's like he stepped right out of another age, America of the 1950s. Al, an exceptional musician, has become a well-known figure of Arizona's rock scene. One fine day, while hitchhiking across the states with a friend, he decided to put down roots here. They were 18 and were pursuing their dreams of freedom.
What we were planning is I wanted to go out to California. I heard a lot about San Francisco, and I had a few friends out there. But you see, we were kind of homeless at the time and had been pretty much on and off the street through most of our teenage years. So we were hitchhiking, and I wanted to go to California, and he says, it's October, It's gonna be real cold if we're gonna be sleeping outside in San Francisco in October. So he says, let's go to Arizona. I met some people. It's a cool little town and it's warm all winter long. I actually fell in love with Arizona when I first came here from the East Coast. The whole state is just filled with beautiful drives. I was getting ready for the show. I gotta get, I get pretty dirty driving around in this car, So I just, put on the good shirt for the gig.
Music is his livelihood, and his old guitar is his most valuable possession. On the roadside, under a leaden sun, he carries out the same unchanging ritual before each concert.
The guitar used to be like a red sunburst, and it had gotten smashed, actually. The whole thing got broken in, and when I repaired it, I was gonna paint it a different color or go back to the red sunburst. And when I primed it and sanded the primer, it kind of gave it looked kind of like the Taxi, actually. So I decided I'd just clear coat it like this, and it matches.
Exit 42, just about 100 miles away, baby, and I'll be home soon. Trucks juggle over in the background, baby, I can barely make you out. Here comes another one rolling by. I only know I can't leave me. You please me, only please yourself. Yes, I only know I got please me, and you please me, only please yourself. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Al often plays solo. Guitars, drums, singing. He's kind of a one-man band. He's also his own manager, always on the lookout for the next gig. Today, Al's making a stop at Kenaï to see Ed, a real character of the far west, like you can meet in Arizona.
Hey, Ed, how are you?
Howdy.
Really nice to see you again.
All right, welcome to Cowtown, Kenaï.
Thank you.
Haven't seen you in a while.
Oh, it's been a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Last night I was up in Tucson, and I was playing a show, and me and Marcus got to talking, and we were thinking that maybe we could come out here. I'm thinking right about the last weekend of June, maybe we could put on another concert out here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can do that. Or you can sit up on the stage, it makes no difference. A lot of folks, just a few months ago, we had 8 bands here.
Great.
I'll show you where you can set up. Come over here and, you can set up here on the stage. And
Ed Kenaï gave his name to this improbable spot, a little village that he planned and built himself. Kenaï is a very special ranch with its own saloon, church, prison, and cemetery. Ed, a Korean and Vietnam War veteran, has spent his civilian life keeping alive the flame of the pioneering spirit of the far west.
Out here, people is treated with respect. Everyone is welcome in this town. It's the code of the West. You don't judge a person by the color of his skin. You judge him by the contents of his character. And that's what we do here. But somehow, the West is losing that. The desert is a school where final examinations are given every hour, every day, every month. You have to understand, you learn to live in correlation with animals, with rattlesnakes, with Gila monsters, everything that's here. You have to know where to find water, because it looks green out there behind you, but that's a dangerous place. It can take your life. They'll find your bones weathered someplace. You have to know.
Al the Rocker also has a kind of crazy dream. In Mammoth, a small town with a population of 2,000, he's renovating the Blue Front Inn. This bar is a legend unto itself. It used to be owned by the son of a Chicago gangster who made a fortune during Prohibition. The Blue Front Inn also used to be a dance hall. And maybe this place in the heart of the desert will come alive again. At least that's what Al is hoping.
This is a 1965 Roe Ambassador. I bought it in Scottsdale, Arizona. There's a guy who, actually the guy I bought it from had 3 or 4 of them, and out of them he took all the parts together and pieced together one working one. And I've filled it with all my own records and records that I got from my father when he died.
Well, there ain't no use of me having a band anyhow. Just a couple of pounds that I got to learn to be somehow. Well, now, $50 to buy the 3 ways. No use arguing, put it in the tank. It's real who you had a gun to get ripped off too. So I called up Mama. I called up Papa. I called up my woman. But she's not home, I wonder where she's gone to.
Driving is something I do all the time as a musician. I do a lot of driving. Even if I just stay in Arizona and just play my regular circuit of shows in Arizona, sometimes I'll do 1,200 miles in a month, and that's just for the gigs.
Flat broke again.
Sometimes that's where I write songs because I have nothing else to do. My mind just starts to work overtime. But I like it. I like driving.
Feels like you never made it home.
250 kilometers from Al's place, just a stone's throw for Arizona, is the town of Bisbee and the Shady Dell, a very original motel. Here, the rooms are all vintage trailers. This morning, Al is paying a visit to his friend Justin, the moving spirit of the place. Like Al, he's a great fan of the fabulous 50s.
We don't have much of a history, and this was a big part of our culture, between the car culture, the movies, and the old diners, and unfortunately, everything's fading away. Nobody knows what these diners were like anymore. They're pretty much all gone.
For me, to get to Bisbee in the taxi, it's, 3 hours with no air conditioning, holes in the bottom of the floor, But it's all part of the adventure, If I wanted to drive a car with air conditioning and stuff, that's not for me,
Good music, A head full of yarns inspired by his Mexican taxi, Al Fowle's life is written on the highways and byways of Arizona. Behind the wheel of his 1954 Chevrolet Bel Air, Al is a happy man.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love this car. I can't stop anywhere without somebody saying, wow, man, that's a cool car. I love it. The trunk popped open. It's got a bad lock. I gotta close it again.
Is 20 miles away. I bet you ain't gonna be surprised when I walk in. Right now he's frying eggs and
well, you see, none of these gauges work, you know, on the thing, and they didn't when I got it. And to kind of replace them all is a little expensive and it's a real pain to do. So, you know, I don't know, you know, if I need to know how fast it is, you know, 50. I don't even know if I'm the one who owns the car. I think I'm just a passenger for a while.
20 miles away.
God bless America.
Al's car is the faithful companion of every moment of his life. Something like a good old friend who every now and then gives you a hard time.
Oh, well, you're gonna blow a tire, you're gonna blow a tire. Ain't the first one I changed. Sure as hell ain't gonna be the last. Ugh. Just gotta get into Tucson and get another one now.
Have you heard about Davey? He got locked up yesterday for the failure to pay his child support. And all us guys laughed and thought it was just so funny. His wife left in such a hurry, she never even stopped to ask for money. She never even called just once to tell him where her and Junior was. So last Friday night, driving back to his lonely home, he started thinking,
I'm not gonna leave Arizona, I don't think. I mean, I wanna travel, you know, I'd like to see the whole rest of the world, really, to tell you the truth. And I'm gonna try to see as much of it as I can. I mean, part of the biggest thing about being a musician is it kind of can be a tool for that. You know, maybe you ain't gonna make any money there, but you're gonna get to see some places, you know? And it's a vehicle like that, you know? It can be, if you're, you know, if that's your intention, you know? But I always wanna stay here, you know? I got a nice little circuit I do, you know, around the state, different gigs I've been doing for some years, different towns I've been playing for a long time, see old friends when I play there, and it's nice. I never wanna lose that.
he had a little yard sale, baby clothes and dishes for sale. A little yard sale, baby clothes and dishes for sale. Little yard sale, baby clothes and dishes for sale.
Wyoming is a land where people still get around on horseback. A land of breathtaking landscapes crossed by the Rocky Mountains that peak at over 4,000 meters. It is the least populated of the United States. Here, not far from Yellowstone National Park, Richard Fox has his ranch.
It's the end of May, and normally at this time of year, the grass is growing and all of the trees have leaves. But this year, as you can see, it's still snowing at this time of year. So we're facing some challenges feeding our horses and our cattle, and we live by nature's rules here.
Richard Fox runs his family ranch, perched at an altitude of 2,300 meters and isolated from the rest of the world. In this region, the temperature can sometimes drop to minus 30 or 40 degrees Celsius. Wyoming is a wild country, land of wolves, grizzlies, beavers, and the imposing elk. This morning, Richard is riding along the edge of the forest. He's tracked down a stray colt that ran off from the herd.
Easy. 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 That's a good boy. That's a good boy. From the day I was born, I've been around horses. You know, I started riding in my father's arms when I was 6 weeks old. So really, they're like family members to me. And my whole family feels the same way. We treat them very gently and, you know, have a lot of respect for horses. Horses are wonderful because you can go so many places with them. You know, it's a little bit like a dog, except you can also ride them. The horses and the cattle, I love the animals. You know, you always feel at peace when you're around them. They're you know, very pure animals. You know, you can go any direction on the horses, and we're very lucky because we're in the middle of the wilderness, so we don't have any highways, we don't have fences, you know, that block us off, so we can go any direction, both physically and I think mentally, because we have these wide open spaces.
When the sun sets, the mountains around the Bitterroot Ranch echo with a particular sound that goes way back to Richard's childhood. Once spring is well underway, they let the horses loose at sunset so they can spend the nights roaming freely in the mountains.
I was born and raised in Wyoming, and I spent my whole childhood growing up here. And then I went away for university, so I saw some other parts of the country, and I experienced, you know, different lifestyles, and realized how wonderful my lifestyle here in Wyoming is. And I think that's part of the reason that I love it so much. You know, I've seen other things, and I've seen how lucky I am and my family is to be here. But I was lucky because I was born into this lifestyle. So I think many people have to search, for something they love and, for a passion in life. And for me, it was just natural.
After a long, hard winter, the spring thaw has begun. The ranch is coming back to life. Today, Richard's entire family is pitching in with the work. They have to drive a part of the herd up to the grazing lands recently freed from the snow. These vast expanses they ride over, these plains, hills, and mountains, all this is their home, and they protect it.
We do things the way they've been done in the West for over 100 years. We rely on the natural world, the grass growing and the cattle having their calves, just like the cowboys did in the old days. This is not a very decorative saddle. This is a real cowboy saddle for work. It's designed to sit in for a lot of hours. You're comfortable in this saddle all day. It's like my office chair that I sit in every day. As long as it's looked after and, I keep loving it, it should last for, generations. Actually, my parents got this saddle for me when I graduated from high school. So I've had it for many, many years. And maybe, I don't know, I'll give it to my son when he graduates from high school. I like to come up just by myself to get away from it all and see what's going on up here. It's very peaceful, it's very nice companionship with the horses. You always have to pay attention to what the horse is doing, and so they keep you thinking. You can't fall asleep, and I can't drift off and think about other things. I have to focus on the horse and on our relationship. It's a little bit like a dance, and you have to pay attention to it, or you'll step on your partner's toes, or they'll step on yours. I came up here this morning to see if we can bring our cattle up into the mountains. Each summer we bring them up, high into the mountains for the grass. And I've discovered that there's a lot of snow up here. So it's too early. We aren't going to be able to bring our cattle up yet. But frankly, it's also kind of a nice trip to see, just me with the two horses, and we get away from it all. And we can explore in the mountains. It's very peaceful. I haven't found anywhere yet that's better than this.
Richard makes a stop on the banks of this river. He still has half a day of riding to get back to the ranch. He'll spend the night in his 100-year-old cabin that has offered shelter to so many cowboys before him. Isolated, but not alone. He has the company of his horses, as well as the spirit of all those who once nourished the same dreams.
Many ranches in the West are getting subdivided, so they're being sold for people to have small houses in this beautiful countryside. But of course, as more people have their small homes in paradise, it's no longer paradise. And so I think for my whole family, it's very important that we're keeping our ranch the way that it has been. It's a hard way to make a living, and it would be easy to, sell the ranch and subdivide it. But there are a lot of ranchers that hold on to the land. Even though it's a tough lifestyle, it's a good lifestyle, and they have a lot of love for what they're doing and for the open land and for the environment. I hope people get a chance to visit wilderness somewhere in the world just to see what it's like. And I think that, that's how everyone used to live. So it's kind of part of us, and it's important to, still see it.
At dawn, Richard will get back on the trail to the ranch. In a few days, the snow will be all gone. That's when they'll drive the cattle up to the summer pastures. In the local Indian language, Utah means people of the mountains. This is the breathtaking realm of towering stone cathedrals sculpted by the wind and rain. Time and erosion have carved out immense canyons. Venturing into the heart of Utah means discovering one of nature's masterpieces. Here, at the foot of these abrupt rock walls, is where the lovers of wide open spaces meet. Men and women who live near these cliffs that they've managed to tame in order to satisfy their thirst for the extreme.
It's like a specific moment where you have to focus and do everything the best you can. And, the only person it really matters to is you, because you're the one there, you're the one on the line. It feels really honest or like real to have experiences like that, because you're gonna try to do the best you can because you sort of have to. Well, I've been climbing for 20 years, and at this point I couldn't really not climb in my life. It's just, it's like eating or walking. I mean, I will always climb. I don't know. I don't know why I like that so much. I just do. I just really like it. What makes sense is being here. And, you're on a cliff and there's gravity and, and you have your equipment and you know what to do and you're going to do the best you can because you want to have a good time and be able to do it again later, and it's very natural. So to me, that makes sense. And I like to live like that.
Steph Davis is one of the world's most respected woman climbers. She has climbed and opened difficult trails all over the globe: Pakistan, Europe, North and South America. Steph Davis could have had a brilliant career as a pianist or devoted herself to writing and literature. But one day she discovered rock climbing, the contact with the stone, and this wild nature that few men or women manage to master. When she arrived here in Moab, Utah, Steph Davis decided to live as simply as possible, in her trailer, not far from the rock walls. And she lived like that for 7 years.
I love this place where there's all these canyons and all of this, there's a lot of shape and there's like a lot of volume in this landscape. And then you never feel like you're just out exposed because there's so much stuff surrounding you, but then it's far away, so you don't feel like squeezed in like some tight valley. So it's just this really nice combination of feeling kind of like there's things surrounding you, but you always feel like you're up on top of places, and it just feels really good here. You know, as the years went by, I went like a lot of places in the world, and this is just my favorite place. Like if I had to stay in Moab and never ever leave this area for the rest of my life, I would be totally happy, because there's just everything to do here.
Now Steph lives with her boyfriend, Mario, who's also a lover of the extreme and strong sensations. Today they're climbing ancient art, a spire in the middle of Fisher Towers, one of Utah's most spectacular landscapes.
Position and everything. Make sure it's all good.
Okay, I'm not clipped right now.
These two climbers, used to high mountains, complete the ascension in under an hour. Here, Steph and Mario are on the summit of ancient art, perched on a narrow platform barely large enough to stand on.
Have a good one, babe.
You too.
See ya.
2, 1.
Steph's free fall down the cliff face has gone off without a hitch. This sport, base jumping, gives an incredible rush of adrenaline. But for Mario, it's more of a problem because the wind has come up. Plus, he's no longer attached by his harness, and his balance is tricky. Under these conditions, you have to be patient. Now the wind has dropped, and Mario is getting ready to take the great leap. But first, he has to get rid of the rope they use to make the climb. The rope has gotten wedged in, and he has to free it with his foot.
Yeah, baby. Here we go. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah. That's okay. Good job. That was a nice one. It's one of those magical places, and it's close to our hometown. It's like 20 miles away, 25 miles away. We can come here like every day if we want to, so we don't have to travel across the world. So, and people cross the world to come here. So when you're actually here and it's your backyard, I feel very, very lucky. You know, I'm more of a jumper, she's more of a climber. So she gets me up and, I get her down. So we have this little team thing going, which is pretty nice. So when you actually have somebody that shares the same passion and you're actually in love with, it makes everything just that much more intense because you can share all these very strong, feelings and moments with somebody you love. It's nice, very nice. So yeah, the thunderstorms, they bring all the air up and then it just takes air in from different sides.
Mario is a climber, but he's also been an airplane pilot and skydiving instructor for years. He's one of the trailblazers of base jumping as well. The passion they both have for wide open spaces and pushing their limits quite naturally led Steph and Mario to share the call of the void.
Mario and I actually met in this plane. And I really like it when he's flying. And then he knows so much, and I really trust his decisions. And it's just nice when he's flying.
If you're in a thunderstorm, it's bad weather, so what you need to do is make sure where they are before you actually take off and basically avoid them. But it does make things a little more tricky, but at the same time, these days we'll have the most beautiful skies because the clouds are bursting and there's a way to be safe as long as you respect the environment and you know what's coming.
Their little plane is weaving between the storms and downpours. Mario is still hesitating about opening the hatch. Steph is ready to go.
How about is 1 minute from dropping skydivers over canyon line? 1 minute.
And door, 0.5 miles. Have a good jump.
For this jump, Steph has donned her wingsuit, especially designed to slide through the air. But man's oldest dream, flying, is not available to just anyone. In the USA, you have to complete 500 jumps before you can dive with a wingsuit. This suit allows Steph to fly much longer in free fall than with the standard equipment. It's an aerial roller coaster that lasts only about 1 minute before opening her parachute.
It kind of feels like being a bird when you have a wingsuit because you can go where you want. You can steer it. You can pop up or dive down. You can, spin around in circles. It's a really cool feeling, but then at the same time, you're also thinking a lot because you have instruments like the altimeter, and you have to think about where you're going to come to land. And so it's like, on the one hand, it's this really like, ooh, I'm a bird. And then on the other hand, you're like, what's my altitude? It's just just an amazing thing that you could do that, You could be like a bird up there. It's kind of amazing that we have that chance. When I started to do meditation, for me, it's just kind of the same thing as running. Like to have like the empty mind state, which is really good. And then you feel good. And then it helps train your mind to do that when you are like doing a base jump or doing a hard climb or free soloing or skydiving or something. Because anything you practice, you can do it better. So if you practice that mind state in safe environments, it's easy to take it into the risky ones.
Hey, Steph, how's it going?
Hi, Slack. Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
Steph.
sweetie. Hi. Hi.
Happy dog.
Hi. Good boy. Is it windy?
Yeah, it's been a little breezy up here, but not too bad.
Is the line good?
Oh, it's perfect.
Looks nice.
Yeah, it's great.
That's super nice, Larry.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Wow, but it's really wet. Is the line wet?
No, it's actually after the sun and all the wind, it's dried out and it's perfect.
Do you know how far down it is?
It's probably about 100 feet down.
Okay.
Larry Harp is an old friend of Steph and Mario. He's a reference in this very spectacular discipline, slacklining. He also has been around the world to fulfill his passion for climbing, which he's been practicing for years. Larry is willing to go to great lengths for such a moment. It took him 2 days of hard work to set up the line. You don't practice this extreme sport on a tight cable, like a tightrope walker with his balancing pole. Here, Larry has to master the stretch and bounce of the narrow strip of webbing as he walks the fine line between vertigo and perfect balance.
Nice.
Thanks.
Good job.
Ooh, that was fun. I really enjoy the balance of being able to control not only your physical and your mental aspect of walking a line. I enjoy being up really high. I've been a climber for 20 years, so highlining or slacklining up high is basically just an extension of that. One thing you try to do is empty your mind of anything. It's kind of like meditation. So if you're thinking about a bunch of things while you're walking, it kind of confuses you, and it might make you stumble or fall. Whew, that was fun. It's always gets the heart rate up a little bit there. For me, highlining is all about the view, and it's not just being up high. It's being in a very scenic place, being out with nature, and just enjoying the landscape, and everything encompasses the experience that you're looking for.